Hey guys, so today I want to take a look at the runoff elections in the state of Georgia between, of course, Jon Ossoff and David Perdue, as well as Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. So before we get into that, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. So taking a look at the Senate election results from the 2020 election, basically, in Georgia, you have to reach 50% of the vote in order to win, and as you can see, David Perdue was not able to reach 50%, with Jon Ossoff winning 47.9 and David Perdue 49.7. And then taking a look at the special election, this is just because Kelly Loeffler only went into office because Johnny Isakson retired in 2020, so she's been a senator for less than a year as of right now, and so that's why she has to run in this election to defend her seat and win her first 6-year term against Raphael Warnock, who was able to win. However, he only won 32.9% of the vote, and that's because since Kelly Loeffler is not, a incumbent that actually won her election, she did get a strong Republican challenge from Doug Collins, who was able to win 1/5 of the vote there in the state of Georgia. So Raphael Warnock was able to win because the Republicans split their votes between Loeffler and Collins, but only the top two candidates will advance to the runoff election, so it'll only be between Warnock and Loeffler, and then Georgia, same thing, just between Perdue and Ossoff. So taking a look at the 2020 presidential election, this is what makes Georgia so interesting, because typically in a runoff election, Democrats do lose. This is just because Democrats have way less turnout in these runoff elections than Republicans do, and in 2020, this is very, very important that the Democrats can get people out to vote. And we've seen Biden and Trump going to Georgia to campaign for their respective parties' candidates, because this is going to decide the Senate. As you can see right now, the Senate is 48-50 after the election, and the only two seats that remain are the two seats in the state of Georgia. Republicans have to win one of them, and they will have a 51-49 majority, which will not be too horrible for Joe Biden, but it will make it a little bit more difficult for him to get a lot of things passed. But if he only gets one senator to work with him, then he will be able to get most of his legislation passed. However, if Republicans win both of these seats, it'll be a little bit harder for Joe Biden. But if the Democrats win both of these seats, they will have a 50-50 tie, but they will have the majority because Kamala Harris, the vice president, will be able to break the tie for the Democratic Party. So right now, these two seats are literally going to decide the future of the United States Senate, and in 2022, it's not looking too great for Democrats. So this is their moment. This is their chance to capture that majority that they have not held in almost a decade. So taking a look at the presidential level, this is what makes it so interesting. Joe Biden was able to win the state of Georgia on the presidential level for the first time since 1992. However, on the Senate level, both candidates were not able to receive the same amount of support that Joe Biden did. The special election, of course, Warnock only won 32.9%, but that's because there were 3 candidates in the race. But in the Georgia election, the Georgia Senate election, the normal election, we see that David Perdue was able to win 49.7% of the vote. That is much more than Donald Trump, who won 49.2%. And when it's so close, that 0.5% will make a big difference. Joe Biden won 49.5% in Georgia. However, in the Senate election, Jon Ossoff only won 47.9%. That is a little 1.6% worse than Joe Biden. So as you can see, Ossoff won 2.3 million votes, while Joe Biden was able to win 2.4 million votes. Almost 100,000 voters voted for Joe Biden, but voted for David Perdue on the Senate level. So this is the problem Democrats are facing. Joe Biden is more popular than these other two candidates in the state of Georgia, or Donald Trump is just less popular than David Perdue. So the Democrats have to get voters out. They have to get more voters out. And typically Democrats have, more trouble getting voters out for special elections. However, with Joe Biden winning the state of Georgia, Democrats are probably going to be a lot more, excited to vote in the special election. They're probably going to be much higher turnout than the Democrats typically are able to pull off, just because, they won, and they're going to have the momentum going to this because Joe Biden's win was historic in the state of Georgia. And really, on the Senate level, there really isn't too much room for improvement. I mean, Jon Ossoff just needs to do a little bit better, and whether he'll be able to do that is a little bit unsure, but right now I think that Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock have very, very good chances at being able to flip these two Senate seats, just because Joe Biden, with his momentum that he was able to bring to the state of Georgia, which Democrats worked so hard to win. You saw Barack Obama there for countless rallies in the state of Georgia before the election, and with the Republicans boycotting this race, I think it's looking very good for Democrats, much better than they had expected right after the election. So taking a look at the polling averages right now, it's basically very, very close on both sides. You see that in the normal Georgia runoff election between David Perdue and Jon Ossoff, you see that David Perdue is leading by 0.2%. But what is surprising is that Trafalgar Group, this is a Republican internal poll. This is, one of the Republicans' most favorite pollsters, just because they overestimate Republicans so much. I mean, they had the GOP basically on the presidential level winning all of the Rust Belt, and of course that did not happen because they do overestimate the Republicans in their polls. But as you can see, they have Jon Ossoff plus 1%. That's a pretty big deal coming out of Trafalgar Group. And then from Survey USA, this is one of the most accurate pollsters on the Senate level on election night. They have Jon Ossoff plus 2%. The last poll that David Perdue led in was from Remington, which was conducted basically a month ago. So the latest polls do show Jon Ossoff defeating David Perdue in the Georgia runoff election. Taking a look at the Georgia special runoff election between Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock, you see that Warnock actually leads by 0.5%. However, in this Republican internal Trafalgar Group poll, it does show Kelly Loeffler plus 5%. Survey USA has a Warnock plus 7%, and Fox has Warnock plus 1%. So this race right now, it is a pretty close race between these two candidates. I think that if Jon Ossoff were running in the special election, I think that he would almost definitely defeat Kelly Loeffler. But Raphael Warnock, he is not as charismatic of a candidate, but I still think that he's not too bad of a candidate. I think he definitely still has a pretty big chance just because he's running against Kelly Loeffler and not incumbent David Perdue. David Perdue actually won his election in 2014 while Kelly Loeffler did not. Taking a look at 538, you will see basically the same thing. You have Warnock leading over Loeffler, as well as Ossoff leading over Perdue according to the new RMG research polls. And the Trafalgar Group, of course, shows Loeffler plus 5 and Ossoff plus 1. Survey USA, as we talked about before, Warnock plus 7, Ossoff plus 2. These are some pretty strong pollsters, especially Survey USA. And then other polls, it's pretty much a really, really close race right now. If you take a look at the numbers before the election, you saw Warnock plus 11, Warnock plus 15. But this is just because of the fact that it was a split race for the Republicans there, which is why Warnock was expected to do so well. However, he did much worse than expected. I mean, plus 19 from public policy. And in the end, he was only able to win this race by 7%. Taking a look at between Ossoff and Perdue, you saw that it was pretty split. Many polls had Ossoff up, many polls had Perdue up, and then Perdue was able to win in the end. And this is just because pollsters did underestimate the GOP and the candidates just all throughout the Senate elections. I mean, Maine, Susan Collins won this race by a little bit less than 9%, and everybody had her losing her race. I mean, she was down 5-6 points against Sarah Gideon, and she came back and won by 9%. So polling was definitely way off. I mean, Gary Peters barely won his race, and he was expected to win by a likely margin according to most polls. So can we really trust these polls? Not really. I mean, they really need to prove that they are reliable once again. But I think that these numbers, they are good right now, but I wouldn't take this for face value. I wouldn't say that Ossoff or Warnock are going to win just because they're leading in the polls. But the biggest problem right now for the GOP is that many Republicans are going to boycott the race. This is because Lin Wood and Sidney Powell, their attorneys representing Donald Trump, they did call for a boycott on these races. They're saying that they're not attacking the Republican governor there in the state of Georgia. They're saying that Brian Kemp, they're not, getting him to do as much. I mean, there really isn't anything for him to do. They just want to win the election for Trump, but they're saying that, if Trump can't win, and if Brian Kemp isn't going to do anything, or if Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, they're not going to do anything for Donald Trump in the state of Georgia, they should just not vote for them because they have to earn their vote. That's basically what they said. And if Loeffler wants your vote, if Perdue wants your vote, they've got to earn it, as you can see right there. So basically, they want them to do more, but right now the Republican, establishment, they are very worried about this, and they, even had Trump go over there and campaign for these two candidates. But, even without Trump there are a lot of Republicans who are very, very upset about Trump losing the election, and then they're really upset about that. So they're planning to boycott the race unless something is done about this, because they do believe that there was election fraud even though there was not. So they're very upset there in the state of Georgia, the Republicans, and that is why Republicans are so worried about this race and why Democrats have the edge right now, I think, just because of, Republicans boycotting the race. They lost Georgia on the presidential level. They weren't able to win any Senate seats in Georgia. Democrats are definitely going to have a lot of momentum going into this race. Taking a look at the predicted map right now, it is favoring the Republican Party. They do have a 71% chance overall of winning one of these two seats, which would give them the majority. Democrats have a 32% chance of winning the Senate, but they would have to win both seats in order to do that. So that's why the Republican chance is higher than these two Senate seats, as you can see in the regular Georgia runoff election. Really not too much change. I mean, if I were to take a look at the 90-day graph, it is getting a little bit closer than it was just before. I mean, even before this, David Perdue was expected to win his race. His chances shot up all the way to 96% on election night, but then it became pretty clear that it was going to go to a runoff after he dipped below 50%. And then taking a look at the special runoff election, or not that, let me go back to this. Taking a look at the special runoff election between Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock, you see that Loeffler has right now a 61% chance of winning, or a 61% share right now there in the state of Georgia. I don't know why it's not loading, but you can't click on that. All right. I really don't know how to see this. Georgia Senate special. Yeah. So basically right now it is in favor of Kelly Loeffler. She has 61% chance right now. However, today or yesterday has dipped up to 65%. Right now, I mean, these numbers, they really are not too great for Raphael Warnock. He was expected to lose this race throughout most of the campaign season, up until the very end, when he had a 53% chance of winning one day before the election. On election night, his chances dipped to just 40%. However, it has increased today, 40% yesterday, and a 65 for Loeffler yesterday. Now it's 39 to 61. So it has improved a little bit there for Raphael Warnock, but the betting odds, they don't decide anything. This is just how most people feel the election is going to go. But still, 4 in 10 people still do believe that Raphael Warnock is going to win, to around 3 in 10 people who believe that David Perdue is going to win the election. So right now, it's a pretty split race. I mean, honestly, I could see both candidates winning, but I would say that the Democrats do have the edge here, just because the Republicans, they do have momentum, and they're going to get more voters out. I think that with, Democrats who did not vote, seeing that the Democratic Party was able to win just because, they didn't vote because they didn't think that Democrats were going to win. I mean, they didn't think that Joe Biden was going to win. I think that those kinds of voters are probably going to come out this time, seeing that Democrats have been able to flip the state of Georgia for the first time in 28 years. So we'll see if the, Democrats can win. If they would win, this would be a big deal. I mean, Democrats winning on the presidential level as well as on the Senate level, both seats, that'll be the first time in decades where, both seats in Georgia were held by Democrats. So that'd be a pretty big deal. Finally, the last thing I want to take a look at in this video, which is a little bit unrelated, but is taking a look at the popularity of President Trump. This is quite, not too great for him. I mean, right now his approval rating is 43.6%. His disapproval is 52.8%. That is a pretty standard approval rating right now for President Trump. But if we were to take a look at the presidencies of former presidents, let me zoom in a little bit for you guys here. So let's take a look at Barack Obama. I mean, towards the very end of his presidency, his approval rating shot up. Even George W. Bush, who was one of the most unpopular presidents towards the end of his campaign ever, I mean, he dipped down to 24%. Even his popularity was able to increase before he left office. Bill Clinton, I mean, we did see a little bit of a surge from there. George H.W. Bush, he was able to provide, a pretty strong transition between Bush and Clinton, and many Americans did approve of that. And I mean, right now, I think that many Americans are, wishing for that to happen again, because this was really the last transition between a one-term president and their successor. And Donald Trump, being the one-term president who lost the election, really has not done anything to provide for a smooth transition between him and Biden. So this was pretty historic. This was the last smooth transition between two presidents, with one president having lost their re-election. I mean, Ronald Reagan saw an improvement there. Jimmy Carter, you did not. He just really was not too popular towards the end of his term. Gerald Ford is a little bit different, but you still saw an increase. Richard Nixon, of course, he did not. Watergate and all that, but the data gets a little bit less certain towards the end there. But you do typically see a bump in the popularity of presidents right before they leave office. But I mean, right now, Donald Trump is just not seeing those kinds of numbers, just like he has not been seeing typical numbers for president throughout the entire election cycle, throughout his entire term, really. I mean, he's never been popular ever. I mean, he's never hit 50%. This is a president who has never been approved of by a majority of Americans. Joe Biden, I do expect him to have a positive approval rating towards the beginning, and then it will probably fall. But I think that it'll be much more unstable than Donald Trump's, just because there's still always going to be that majority of Americans who disapprove of the president. For Joe Biden, that threshold is a little bit smaller. So right now, it's pretty surprising that Donald Trump has not improved in popularity at all. I think a lot of this is, just the fact that he is not willing provide for a smooth transition between him and Joe Biden, and I think that is hurting his popularity, because most people in the United States are not approving of how Trump has handled this quote-unquote transition that really has not occurred. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. In this video, I basically went over the Georgia runoff elections between David Perdue and Jon Ossoff, as well as Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. Right now, I cannot make a prediction as to who's to win. It is still in 1 month. It will be held on January 5th, so make sure you register to vote. You can vote early or just vote on election day on the 5th of January. And, if you can, if in the state of Georgia, make sure you do vote. I don't care who you vote for, but this will decide who wins the United States Senate. So that's very important. Make sure you do vote if you can. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Consider joining my Discord server. We'll be updating you guys on these special election results and all of that, as well as other election results. And it's just a nice community for us to talk about political issues. So make sure you join that if you have not yet. And I will see all of you guys in the next video. I will be releasing these videos a little bit more frequently. I will try to do 1 video a day as I did before. However, it's not guaranteed, but it'll be a much more stronger schedule, I guess, than it has been. I was just on a little bit of a break, and you hear my dogs barking in the background. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.